Erika. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning. We're super grateful to get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks so much, Courtney, for having me. A little bit of background on me is I am a marketer as my career. I've been working in marketing since the early 90s. Not trying to give away my age, but it's been a few decades. And just in 2022, I decided to finally complete my book. So I'm a first-time author, and hopefully more books to follow.
Amazing. What is your book about?
So my book is about my experience with breast cancer. About 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with an advanced form of breast cancer and had to undergo a multitude of oncology treatments. And when I was first diagnosed, of course, I was scared, and a lot of my family lived out of state, and my friends were all around the globe. And I wanted to find a way to communicate with everybody all at once. So, in a way, my book started before I knew it was going to be a book, because I started a blog at that point. I called it Blog About My Boobs, and then quickly realized that it was very little about breasts and more about everything that my life was going through, everything that was happening for me, to me, with me, and everything that I was learning in the process. And so a few years after my treatment was completed, I thought about writing the book, and then I got cold feet and backed off. And then in 2022, decided to pick it up again, felt that it was something that I really did want to share. And so I completed the process.
Amazing. I love that. What inspired you to write your book?
Well, I think that when I was going through my treatment, my blog was getting shared, and people were reaching out to me to say, hey, my sister's about to go through this process, or my mom, or whoever it was. And there's just way too many people out there that they're going through this exact same thing. And so they would say, do you have anything you can share with them, any information or insights? And I would always offer my blog link and just say, hey, look at the early stuff here. This was about when I was diagnosed and what I was going through and the decisions I made and the kinds of things that really got me through. And then my somewhat later posts are about the complementary therapies that I employed to help my body and my mind be able to really endure the rigors of the oncology treatments, because they can be quite exhausting and they're long. It's not a sprint for sure. And so I think that when I heard from people that the blog was helpful, I started to think that maybe it should be something that was shared on a little bit of a wider stage. And maybe this should be something that I didn't keep to myself. I feel like there was a lot that I learned and a lot of people who helped me, a lot of different modalities that I employed. And I want people to know and understand that while cancer can be painful, they don't have to suffer. And I wanted to share that information with people.
Love that. When writing your book, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your book is for?
So it's interesting because, like I said, my blog was really the launch pad for the book. And yes, there is more information in there besides the blog. And I think that for the most part, who I had in mind was really anyone going through a serious illness or challenge in their life. Because while there is a lot of medical information that pertains to breast cancer and then just cancer in general, so clearly women would be the biggest target, I think that the psychotherapy that I received and the mental perspective that I gained and what I learned about how to have a positive outlook and be able to accept without any kind of negativity or pushing away resistance, really, of the diagnosis. that was really what got me through. And I think that that line of thinking can really help anyone with any kind of challenge that they're facing in their life.
Amazing. How long have you been writing and what made you really sit down and start?
So I think I've been writing as long as I've known how to write. When I was a kid, I loved having pen pals. I would meet someone on vacation. There'd be, a little girl staying next to us who was also 8 years old, and we would trade addresses and we would write letters back and forth. But I also would, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but in the newspaper, there would be ads in the classified for if you want a pen pal, you could send away and request someone your age, your gender, whatever. And I had a pen pal in England. I had one in Singapore. And to me, it was interesting to write and to read what they were writing back to me. But also they would sometimes send pictures because, this was all before the internet. So they would send like a printed out photo to me, or sometimes, small gifts like stickers and things like that. And so I think that my joy of writing came very early. And it was probably around middle school to maybe early high school, I think, when I discovered that I was, quote, good at it. I started to get A's on my book reports, and I liked writing term papers, things like that. And so it sort of blossomed into, a deeper interest where in college I pursued a degree in public relations. I wrote for the school newspaper, and always in every job I've ever had, it's always been very writing intensive, including the job that I do now. It's the thing I love to do the most.
Love that. What is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
So it was a unique opportunity that I had in 2022 to finish my book. I would say that's when I did the vast majority of my writing. And the reason it was unique was because in early 2022, my husband and I decided that we wanted to move from North Carolina back out to the Rocky Mountains. And so we were coming to Montana, and we had taken a month between when we resigned our positions and when we were actually arriving in Montana to travel throughout the country. And so we hit something like 12 states, and we went up into Canada. We have an RV. And so we just went everywhere that we could. And it was very beautiful. It was peaceful. It was a break. It was this time to sort of breathe in between one thing and the next thing. So when we got to Montana, I didn't have a job lined up. My husband did. And so I didn't really know what I was going to be doing. And it was then that I decided that this was my opportunity. I've been granted this gift of time. And so that's what I should do. And I dedicated a lot of my free time of 2022 to doing this. I wasn't employed again until October. So it was between like May and October that every day that my husband sat down at his computer to do work, I sat down in a different room in my office and did my work. And the writing was finally completed in early December.
Love that. What do you need in your writing space to stay focused?
Need something pretty to look at. I think that for me, sometimes I get the best ideas when I'm outside. I feel like I could be on a run and I can compose in my head like crazy. And it's really important for me to be able to come right back home and sit down at the computer and bang out those thoughts. Because sometimes if I'm like, okay, I've been cleaning up the dishes and putting away the laundry and walking the dogs, and now I have to sit down and write, and my mind hasn't been on a topic, I can't just get there. It's like I have to kind of move my body, be outside, and get some sort of inspiration. And then the thoughts really flow. I've often thought, you know what, on these runs, I should bring a tape recorder because the thoughts come to my head, and it would be really great to have something there to record them so that when I get back to the computer, I'm not starting fresh again. But yeah, having just being able to look out a window, having that view to the outside is really what keeps me focused and able to compose.
Love that. What is your favorite writing snack or drink?
I'm going to be really boring here, but I drink a ton of water. I have my water bottle with me almost all the time, and I just keep it refilled. I I don't know. I dig water. I don't know what to say. As far as snacks go, probably fruit. I probably cut up, some kiwis and strawberries, something like that. I'm kind of boring. I don't know. People probably say like a scotch and a cigar or something. Yeah, that's not me. I'm boring. Fruit and water.
Love it. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
So I really love nonfiction. I love to read anything in that, I guess I'll call it self-help genre. I don't really like that terminology, but maybe that explains it the best. I love that sort of introspection, personal betterment kind of book. There was a time in my life where I just would go to the library and go to the biography section and just kind of go and pick a book and not really have in mind what I was looking for. I would just grab one. So I've read, all kinds of books about people that I never would have chosen probably if I hadn't just blindly picked one off the shelf. So yeah, I would say definitely nonfiction is my favorite. I can make one exception. I love Stephen King.
Love that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Um, yeah, I would say that, um, I really enjoyed, I mentioned Stephen King. He wrote a book called On Writing, which is maybe his only nonfiction book, but it's all about writing and how you write, why, what his process is, all of those things. And I have a quote hanging behind my desk at home that says, it's by Stephen King, and it says, you can, you should, and if you start, you will. And I hung that close to my desk. I had it written on a sticky note for some amount of time. It just reminded me that, I should do this. I want to do this, and I will as long as I keep at it. Also, I think that Elizabeth Gilbert, she wrote a book called Big Magic. And I've always been a fan of her writing. And in Big Magic, she talks a lot about sort of finding your passion and harnessing it. And I don't even know that she calls it passion, because she says in one of her books, if maybe it was Big Magic, people say like, well, just pursue your passion. And she's like, if I had a passion, I wouldn't be asking you what I should do. It's those people who maybe aren't quite sure how to find their purpose or do the next right thing. So I think that those two. Also, it's always been something in my mind where someone said to me, if you want to become a better writer, read more. And so I think that even if the book isn't about writing, it's just kind of fascinating to me to read other people's writing and see how they do it. Even learn new words. I love sitting down with a piece of paper and writing out vocabulary words that I haven't heard before. And then just sort of being in awe sometimes at how people can weave a story or just keep you so engrossed that you can't stop flipping the pages.
Love that. What type of books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
So when I was little, so I'm the youngest of 9 kids, and my dad loved to read. So we had a lot of books in our house. And, I had books that were given to me from older siblings. We always had the Scholastic book fair at school, and those kinds of things that kept me interested. I can remember reading Judy Blume when I was little. I wrote a book report on Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. I loved Beverly Cleary and the whole Ramona series. Yeah, Paula Danziger and The Cat Ate My Gym Suit. Those are the ones that come to mind when I think about what I read when I was younger. And then I think it's sort of, I got into Stephen King in middle school because once I got into that, seventh, eighth grade, people were reading Cujo and, Carrie was out, and it sort of sparked my interest. And I read those books and have continued to read Stephen King because I think he's just a master. But I can't say that there's an all-time favorite. But I do think that as a kid, I liked those funny and uplifting kind of stories.
On the opposite side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if they come out with something, you automatically grab it?
So I would say that Elizabeth Gilbert is one of those people. I think the first book I read of hers was Eat, Pray, Love. And then I had the wonderful opportunity to meet her in person, and she signed my book at a yoga event. And so anything she writes, I always buy and read right away. I would say the same is true for Brene Brown. I love reading her books. I still have Braving the Wilderness on my nightstand, not because I haven't finished it, but I haven't finished it for maybe the fourth time by now. I keep rereading it. I really love it. Also, Cheryl Strayed. I loved Wild, and then the book was great, and then the movie was fantastic. So I really like her and Tiny Little Things, reading all of that, listening to her. Yeah, I would say those are probably my top three.
Love that. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
I think that you have to pick what interests you and not what you think you should read. I think there's a lot of people that maybe go to either the library or a bookstore and look for classics. And I remember, going back at some point, they had a table at Barnes and Noble that was like summer reading. And I went and looked and I was like, what haven't I read here? And there were some, and I remember going back and reading what were even controversial books. And I was like, I don't know, that just didn't do it for me. So I think that you have to find what inspires you on whatever topic that is. And it shouldn't be what you think, or maybe even what's at the top of the bestseller list, but sometimes I like to do that section at Barnes and Noble where they'll have staff picks. There was, when I used to live in Denver, there was an employee at that Barnes and Noble who her taste in books just totally meshed with mine. And so I used to just go right there and look at her pick of the week or the month or whatever it was and pick her book. And I would always find something great. So I think that maybe recommendations too from someone that you trust, that you think has similar taste, can be helpful too.
Love that. On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting out to write their own book?
So I had great advice given to me by a friend at one point because I was struggling with what to write. And he said, just write it down, because you can always edit words that are there, but you can't edit a blank page. And so I love that. I remember that. And I still do that because it's, you can just start sort of blathering. It's just you and your keyboard at that point in an open Word document. So I would just say, first of all, be disciplined about it. I do think that you have to commit yourself to sitting down to do it. But once you do, don't put so much pressure on yourself that it has to be perfect the first time. Get the words out, get the thought out more than anything. And then you can always go back. I would often do that, put it away for a week and then bring it back out. And then you're like, oh, I see where I was going with this. This is how I can improve on the thought I was trying to express. So yeah, just don't make yourself feel like you're a failure if the first time you don't put something down on paper that's publishing worthy, because I don't know really of anybody who does do that.
Love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
That I'm shy. I am an introvert. I think that sometimes I come across as an extrovert because when I'm with people that I'm comfortable with, I'm very open and I love to laugh. I think I'm a very lighthearted person, but I don't like big events. I don't really, public speaking makes me very nervous, but I've done it a lot for my job. And so people are like, really? You don't like it? You do it so well. I don't like it. I am an introvert. I tend to be a very shy person.
Love that. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
I just wanted to talk for a second about my book. I think that one of the main points, so my book is called Cancer and Other Things I'm Grateful For. And the subtitle is How Self-Advocacy and Integrative Medicine Led to Holistic Healing. And I think it's that self-advocacy point that I wanted to stress right now, because sometimes I feel like when you say self advocacy, other people conjure up this image of having to be very loud and boisterous and really stand up for yourself and shout it from a tabletop that no, I won't put up with this or whatever it is. But in the end, I feel like self advocacy is something that happens as a result of quiet introspection and figuring out for yourself what works and making decisions and just sort of being firm in that. It's not a big, loud, and obvious process that takes place. I think that just making that decision in yourself and sort of sticking to your guns, especially when it comes to something in medical care, you are the patient and you have to be comfortable with what's happening to you and to your body, regardless of who is giving you advice. And sometimes that's really hard to do when the person giving you advice is a doctor or a panel of doctors, because if it doesn't feel like the right thing to you, it shouldn't matter who is trying to persuade you. You have to feel it's right in your gut.
Love that. Where's the best place for readers to find your book? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option and the best place to connect with you?
Yes. So my book is coming out in June of 2023. So right now, the best place to find it is going to be on Amazon.com or BNN.com after June 27th. As far as signed copies go, I do have some events planned, and those you will be able to find on my website. So that's erika-wolf.com. And you'll be able to see there where I'll be and when I'll be there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes. That way everyone can find you. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Courtney. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate it.